This is Youth Ministry 6.3. I'm with Andy Blanks. 6.3 stands for Nehemiah 6.3. I'm doing great work and I cannot come down. Andy is the co-founder of one of my favorite blogs, Youth Ministry 360. A lot of hits, a lot of visits to it, and I frequent it daily. And I know many of my comrades do as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about blogging today. And Andy, thanks so much for being on, man. I appreciate it.
Well, hey, man, thanks for having me. And I was joking around with Les Bradford, the other founder of Youth Ministry 360. I was saying, we should be asking you. You're the expert. Your blog is impressive, Robbie. You've done a great job with it. So, and it's one that we frequent as well. So,
I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Now, just curious. Didn't really send you this question, but always curious as to your story. How did you get into the creation of Youth Ministry 360? Just kind of tell me your story there.
Yeah, I'll give you the real short story. My history, the past probably 10 years or so, I've been designing Bible study curriculum for teenagers. I've always worked as a youth volunteer, adult volunteer in the youth ministry that I've been in at my church. And so I always had a heart for equipping youth pastors and youth workers and, of course, teaching teenagers God's Word. So we were serving in another ministry, Les and I were, developing Bible study resources. And God just put it on our hearts to kind of take our gifts and talents and passions, have a little more stewardship over those. So we stepped out on our own. Actually, I guess it was last March. Founded Youth Ministry 360. So the platform of that is Bible study resources. But as you said, so the daily expression of our desire to train and equip youth pastors is the YM360 blog. And we've been doing that for about, it was actually, the funny thing was it was a year yesterday, day before. So we're a little company, man. We're a startup, but God's been real good to us, and we've had a ball, kind of partnering with guys like you, just to. One thing Les and I will say, and I want to flavor this discussion with that as well, is that we don't want to be experts. We're not experts. One of the things that we love to do is, and really the vision behind the YM360 blog was to create a platform where we could bring the voices of experts, quote unquote, to the table. And then we, guys like yourself and, other youth workers out there who are doing this every single day. That's the voices we want, kind of creating a culture that peers are training each other. So that's it, man. That's sort of the background of what we're doing, and we're having a ball doing it. Man,
you're doing a great job. And I meant to say that, it's not just a blog. I mean, you guys got video curriculum, you got Bible study resources, newsletters, and on. And so it's kind of a multifaceted ministry. So, it's a great thing. So speaking about blogging, all right, question. Say I want to start a blog. Youth Ministry 360, what is some do's and don'ts you guys would have for me at starting a blog?
Cool. It's a great question. And I think, just to real quickly start off with it, it's that you can have a blog, right? I mean, you don't have to be sort of, any sort of an expert. You have to have something to say. You have to have a voice. And so anybody can start a blog. And I mean, some of the best blogs out there in terms of content are relatively new from maybe a youth pastor, youth worker in a small church somewhere, not a superstar by any means, but has a ton to say, and that's important. So you have to have a voice, have to have something to say. Mm-hmm. Do's and don'ts. Let's start with frequency. You have to be consistent. Right. Do you have to post every day? No, you don't. But I think, it helps to post every day, and if you're looking for a number 3 times a week, I mean, if you're not posting 3 times a week consistently, it's going to be hard to kind of build that expectation out of your readers. Sure. So, and that's something you're really good at, and it's, you can speak to that. It takes a tremendous amount of commitment to do that. So I'd say, frequency, focus is huge for me, especially starting out. I think it's really key to know exactly what you want to talk about. And, I think this is a debatable point, and maybe some people would have different perspectives on this. But I would say, again, especially starting out, you need to say, I'm going to write about these 3 things. So I'm a youth worker. And maybe it's not enough to just be a youth worker. Maybe it is. I don't know what your goals are. But if you're a youth worker in an urban context, or a youth worker in a small church, or a youth worker in a large church, or a youth worker in a network of churches, find that sort of, not necessarily a niche, but just, I like to call them buckets or categories. I'm going to write about, you do a great job writing about theology. That's one of your sort of buckets.
Right.
So whether that's, practical app training, you have to have a focus. So frequency, focus, don'ts, length is huge to me, especially starting out. And I am as guilty. Yeah. You some long posts. You write long posts. I write long posts. I'll do it. But especially kind of starting out, it is so easy for people to read short posts. Mm-hmm. Long posts are just, it's just not the way we really engage with content on the internet anymore. Yeah. It's you want scannable. If you can have a CSS in your blog that gives you headings, you do a great job of this, Robbie. Yeah. Headings or bullet points, anything you can do to help make the content scannable for your audience. Mm-hmm. I made some notes. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, the last one on do's and don'ts, I think, for me, might be motivation. What are you looking to do with your blog? Are you trying to make a name for yourself, trying to make this big, huge, destination site? I mean, you're asking my opinion. I think that's the wrong way to go about it. You should write because God's, and I think in our context of being a youth worker, God's put something on your heart. You feel like you can, again, this is just my opinion. You feel like you can offer something to other youth workers to help them, fulfill their calling. And so your motivation's got to be right, I think, or you'll fail. You know what I mean? Like if you're motivated by blog hits or how many places you show up on Google, it's going to be really hard to kind of sustain that for any period of time. So, what do you think? Did I miss anything?
No, I think you're great. Something else, which is going to kind of lead into the next question, which might seem like we're flipping it over a little bit, is John Acuff or Acuff, stuff Christians like. One of the best posts I've read is he said, look, if you want to have a successful blog, don't look at your site hits, and don't look at your all the statistics and all that. He says just do what you feel called to do, what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and it doesn't really matter about blog hits. Which in the next question, it seems like I'm being hypocritical, but say a goal for you, and it's not bad to gain readership. Say you're passionate about something and you feel like you have a voice about something. How do you take it to the next level when it comes to readership?
Yeah, and I think I know you're being kind of joking. I don't think it's hypocritical. I think in terms, if God's put something on your heart to say, and that you're gifted at saying it, you have some experience and passion. I think we should see it in terms of ministry influence. If God's given you something to say, why not be able to say it to, a lot of people, more people? So it's a great question. I think your first question was kind of like getting started maybe, and the second one is, kind of taking it to that next level. I'd say one of the most important things you can do is engagement. Mm-hmm. And there's two kinds of engagement on your site and engagement on other people's blogs. Yep. Comments are huge. And if you can generate comments on your blog, it's a prime way for you to interact with the people. One of the most annoying things, and some blogs are just too big for this. It's not, you take like Scott McKnight at Jesus Creed or Michael Hyatt or something, like they can't, and Michael Hyatt's actually, both those guys are actually pretty good at it, but he had 300 comments today. They're not going to be able to answer all of them. But if you're Robbie McKenzie or Andy Blanks and you're not answering, you're not talking back to your comments, you're blowing. That's a great way to get your blog to the next level, engage with your readers. But also, I would suggest having a Google Reader or another RSS reader, following other blogs, and interacting there as well. So go in and comment on other people's blogs. There are some incredible blogs from youth workers out there, and you should be interacting there as well. You think that's good advice, Robbie?
No, I do. And part of, like with WordPress, what I do is they'll have that, automatic link back to the to my blog, and I comment on other people's blogs with that my daughter's picture there, but it goes back to my blog, and I think that's huge in order to have that sort of readership. And plus it means and I know this is not everyone's felt desire there, but this guy's not into himself. He's actively engaging me. He's actually engaging other people, and he's doing it genuinely, not just to get people to come to his side. And it's a whole dialogue thing.
Yep. I'd say just a few more little things about sort of taking your readership to that next level. We talked about this earlier. There's no reason to belabor the point, but you're going to have to commit to it. It's not going to happen overnight. There's almost some sort of built-in mechanisms in search engines and Google's that I think I just said Google's, which that sounds real intelligent. Google that actually might prevent sort of that sort of overnight happening. I mean, it takes a while for your blog post to actually get indexed by Google, so you don't have to commit to it. I mean, you're going to be in for the long haul if you really want to start something and take it to the next level. I would say this is kind of technical, and there's other people who are better at this than I am. Jeff Goins is a great guy. His blog has great tips on this. But write for SEO. Yep. SEO is search engine optimization, and there's ways that you can. There's so many tips out there. I won't even go into it. Just Google writing for SEO. Way you can do your headlines, way you can write body copy that actually helps Google and other search engines pick up your blog posts. So again, this is kind of next level type stuff, but write for SEO. And then finally, I would say be multi-platform. Take advantage of Twitter, Facebook. I mean, that's kind of intuitive. We're all kind of wired that way anyway, but make sure that you're tweeting out your blog posts. You know, some of the things people do with us that we kind of like occasionally will be somebody will tweet a blog post and they'll actually put our at YM360, our Twitter account, in their post. So we'll see it. We'll comment it. You know, we can't always track all of those in that way. I've got 400 or 500 blogs in my Google Reader, and that's kind of how I go through them. But yeah, it's a good idea. Use Facebook, use Twitter. Be sort of take a multi-platform approach to getting your message out. So those are some tips I would think would help you kind of get your readership to the next level. You add anything to that? You're as much of an expert as I am.
No, I think that's good. I was going to mention something about that optimization. I mean, and something that I don't know works for me, but and is eye appealing is a lot of times on my posts I'll have like if it is longer, which sometimes I do, is I'll have like section headings, or I'll do like bullet points or something like that. Something that's just, and you do it as well. I mean, it's something that just it catches your eye and it's quick, even if they don't read all that stuff. It says, hey, look, I'll just look at these 5 bullet points, and but if I want to read more, I can, but it's just here's a summary of what's going on.
And that's just some basic, like, I don't know a lot of code, but I know enough, and I'm sure, you do too. You know enough just basic HTML to kind of know your different headings, and you can find all that stuff just by Googling. Exactly. You can Google, hey, HTML code for different headers or whatever. And so, that's a great point.
Something that is one of my weaker points is creativity, and I kind of I rely on people like you and others to help me. People ask me, well, how are you so creative? It's like, well, I'm not. I just connect to others who are, and so I might have answered part of your question as well. But how do you have fresh ideas for not only content but the appearance, everything for your blog? How do you have fresh ideas?
Let's look at those a little bit separately. Fresh ideas, I think, it's a real challenge for all of us. And yourself, and I assume most people, unless you're Adam McLean, who seems to have 20 fresh ideas a day, you're a robot. It's hard. I think just some tips for that is, let's think about that idea of focus we talked about earlier, like knowing your categories, knowing your emphases or your buckets on your blog. If you have a real good definition of that, as you just go throughout your day, you've almost got your antennas out for those buckets. So you're interacting with other blogs. You're looking at news articles. You're doing your quiet time. You're listening to the radio. You're, on your run, and your brain's freed up to think a little bit. If you're sort of in tune to your categories and your buckets, you can begin to kind of collect ideas.
Sure.
I think an absolute must is some sort of a note-taking platform.
Absolutely.
That syncs. Evernote is probably the most popular. I'm not giving you a tip. Anybody doesn't know there. It's amazing. I've got it for my phone, my computer. I literally will be on runs in the morning at sunrise, and I'll stop. I do it all the time. Stop in the middle of a run, and pound out a quick little note to myself in Evernote, and I know that it's going to be synced to my desktop when I get back from my run. You've got to have ways to, whether that's a moleskin or whatever, you have to have ways to take notes as you encounter these. You come across information during the day that's going to be helpful for a blog post. You have to have your eyes open all the time, and you have to be feeding yourself. And you mentioned that, Robbie. You have to be, whether it's interacting with other blogs. I mean, that's just a true statement for spiritual development and discipleship and being leaders.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have to constantly be feeding yourself. You will write out of the overflow of what you're putting in to your life. And if you're not taking in, it's really, really hard to create. So it's, that's just that's one of the thoughts there. You talked about a little bit about creativity in general. Mm-hmm. I think that's one thing you and I talked about kind of ahead of time was how do you what if you're not creative,
right,
or sort of technically challenged? Like how do you get into blogging? The technical hurdle, I think, and you can speak to this as well, the technical hurdle is actually pretty low now. I mean, there are enough. I mean, WordPress is kind of the robust, sort of heavy hitter of the blog world, and rightfully so.
Yep.
But I mean, Tumblr, Posterous, you can lower the threshold on technology pretty easily with apps and blogging platforms that are out there. Different templates, different styles. It's pretty. Tumblr is about as I love Tumblr. It's about as foolproof as you can get in terms of
right. Yeah. Absolutely.
And what do you think about WordPress? I mean, is your blog WordPress blog?
WordPress, absolutely. Yeah, I used to, and then maybe something else that might help in the blogging as well is taking the WordPress out of your domain name and just, I pay like $18 a year for RobbieMcKenzie.com.
Yep.
And whatever your creativity is, you can pay for that. But yeah, WordPress, I've been impressed with that because of the organization aspect and the categories and different things there. But yeah, WordPress has been probably my favorite. Tumblr would be next for me.
Yeah, I think
it's more.
Platform.
I think it's more Tumblr. I would say where WordPress lacks in creativity, Tumblr kind of picks up. It looks appealing and it's simple. And if you're going to a blog, you go to Tumblr and it's like, okay, that's quick, that's easy. It's not too difficult. So yeah.
Yeah, I like. It's funny because the whole time you said the word hypocritical earlier, and I'm like the biggest hypocrite in the world when it comes to my personal blog. But for me, that's a different blog post for another day. It's like, how do you balance the sort of, I guess I'd say, I don't know, corporate, but brand blogging for YM360. So many of my ideas go there first, and so my Tumblr blog just sort of dead to the world. But yeah, so don't pay attention to anything I've said for my Tumblr blog. Just leave it out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I think you're right. I think there's so many cool things. There's so many platforms out there. You don't have to be creative at all to set up a great looking blog.
Yeah, and some of the, I don't know what you've done with Youth Ministry 360, but even the technology people who actually create the blogs, they're becoming more and more affordable. Say you want a guy, a technology guru, just say create me a blog and make it accessible, make it eye appealing.
Yeah,
it's getting more and more affordable.
And those guys, most of those guys are using a WordPress platform. YM360 and our entire website is on a WordPress platform, and I mean what that does is, again, what you just said. You can take a creator, an IT guy, and say developer, blow this thing out for not much money, but then you still have that back end where you're loading content. Yeah. It's still that streamlined WordPress and all the features. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, technology's really. I mean, it's a silly thing to say, but kind of come a long way. So,
last question. Andy Stanley, in his book Visioneering, talks about, the more precise your vision is, the better it is going to be for whatever organization that you're in. And so for me, it's kind of changed my ministry in the last few years. Changed, even as simple as it may seem, my blogging, relationship with my wife, etc. All that. I mean, so for blogging, how does vision factor into blogging?
I think we've made, as far as I'll answer, I think we've probably touched on it just a little bit. But I mean, it's just the idea of, I think, you don't have to be sort of an expert. You don't have to be sort of a big name to start blogging. But I think you do have to have a vision. You have to know what you want to say, and you have to, you have to be willing to commit to that vision long term. It can't be, if you don't have to be a great writer, but if you don't love to get your content out there, it's going to be hard to kind of keep a sustainable blog.
Absolutely.
Some of the blogs out there I really like to read, I don't know that I'd hire those guys to write our Bible studies. They're not great writers.
I agree.
They're good communicators, and the vision that they have really works for me. So yeah, I mean, obviously, vision's important. How do you really cast a vision for your blog, or what should that vision sort of entail? Again, know what you have to say, know your buckets, your focus, and then I think goals are great. We kind of they're sort of cliche, but I mean, what do you want to accomplish with your blog?
Sure.
I'd say apply that to your frequency of when you post. Apply that to, the time constraints you're willing to put into it. So I'm going to put an hour a day on my blog, and then you can measure yourself by if you're hitting those goals. But you have to have a vision for it. There's so many blogs out there. I'll add a blog to my blog reader, and because it's got great content. And then, I can't tell you. I've got, I don't know, there may be 100 blogs in there that never pop back up on my reader because the person sort of lost focus. And so if you don't have that vision, and you can't stick with it in terms of what you want to accomplish, what you want to do, what you're going to say, it's going to be real hard to kind of stick with it. But don't let that stop you from starting. It's real easy to get started, and there's so many great youth workers out there that have awesome stories and awesome experiences and passions, and that stuff needs to be shared with other youth workers because it just makes everybody better. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents on vision.
That's awesome. Andy, I appreciate you so much. Hang on a little bit. Andy Blanks, Youth Ministry 360. Thank you so much. Go to his blog.
Thanks for having me.
Go to the website. Buy some of the resources. I know they're creating some great stuff, great curriculum.
Thanks, man.
And stuff youth ministers will grow, stuff teenagers will grow from, families, all that. So head to the website and check it out. Andy, thank you so much.
Thanks, Robbie. Take care, man.